Okay, let's begin. Welcome. So I'm going to be recording this as a kind of an experiment. And usually I don't do a slideshow, so don't worry, the rest of the course will not be slides. It will be going inside. First, I want to talk a little bit about Esalen itself. I've had the pleasure of teaching here for almost half my life, 35 years. So if you're under 35, it was before you were born. And I feel every time I come here, I'm coming home. And I think if you're first time here, you're in for a real treat. And it's a wonderful place dedicated to healing. So everything here is done with the intention to support you in your healing journey. This is the place where they coined the term human potential movement. And it's really here for you to embody and fulfill your potential as a human being. A lot of the food here is grown on this property. The people who plant it and grow it do it with the intention of bringing the love and kindness to you. The cooks are doing the same thing. So every component of this place is designed for you. I also teach the founding director of Stanford's mindfulness-based stress reduction program. And so I work with wonderful kids in the community at Stanford. And one of the things that, with that group of people in particular, they're high achievers, they work hard. And one of the things that they've cultivated is beating themselves up a lot. So they kind of achieve what they achieve by, if they got one or two questions wrong in a test, they think if they beat themselves up harder, then they'll do better the next time. And what I came to realize is that they're doing this with good purpose. Their intention is to achieve their goals. And what I love to do, and I think that it comes out, is that there's a better way to do this. And it comes out through kindness and self-love and self-care. So this particular program came out of a graduate program for the mindfulness-based stress reduction class that we had. And what I saw is that people changed and understood a better way of achieving those noble goals that they had. And one of the expressions that I use is, can you imagine that the one thing you could count on in your life, no matter what happened, no matter what came up for you, what challenges you had to face or we have to face as a community, as a world, the one thing that you could count on is your own mind being kind to you. And that's your birthright. You don't have to do anything or achieve anything or change anything to earn that. It's your natural birthright to have your own mind being kind, basically to itself. So that's really what it's about here. Now what we're going to do in this week is we're going to do different exercises and different practices, which are meditation, mindfulness based, to go inside of ourselves, to get connected within yourself and to be able to meet yourself where you are. Let's just beautiful Esalen. This building here, I watched it be developed and built. These materials here are all recycled wine giant wine, whatever you call them. No, not the corks, the barrels. These portals here that you see here are aligned with the equinox and the solstices. So if we were here on December 21st, I believe it would be that one would be pointing at these plates on the wall at sunset, the sun. So there's a lot of thought that went into this beautiful building, and we'll experience the beautiful environment that we have here. So let's look at what I realized. I was leading, I'm not going to do it next year, but for about 10 years, I've led a 7-day silent meditation retreat for New Year's, which we're silent in the room, but then we go out and we go dance and do all the other stuff. So we come from the silence to play in the field here. And some dear friends of mine, Doug Abrams, who was the biographer for Desmond Tutu, got the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu together for their 80th birthday. And if you saw the Book of Joy and a documentary on them, and we realized that with what's going on in the world right now, and kind of some of the stressors that we have looking at our country, that we need the kind of wonderful minds and hearts that these type of people have, and they're models for us to, but they're like kids. They just play with each other. If you watch a documentary, they just giggle. And they're like Desmond Tutu's daughter said it's like being around 2 3-year-olds. And that's the, and they've both been through a lot of challenges. So don't let the behavior of others destroy your inner peace. Peace comes from within. We are shaped by our thoughts, and we become what we think. When the mind is pure, joy follows like a shadow that never leaves. So out of that, the Dalai Lama, love and compassion are necessities, not luxuries. Without them, humanity can't survive. Kindness is my religion. That's what the Dalai Lama says. I'm not a Buddhist. You're not a Catholic. Our kindness is our religion. And if all the religions were imbued with that kind of kindness, the world would be a very different place. And so we look at these qualities that that they model for us. So let's look at meditation. So one of the, when in 1976, when I finished my residency, I had a girlfriend that I lived with whose brother was a physics graduate student at Stanford. And so we lived in a household of physics graduate students. And I was the weirdo going to meditation things, and they were the scientists. And there was a tremendous schism that, believe me, I took some hits on with that. And my girlfriend's brother, who we lived with, his girlfriend was Sally Ride, who became the first woman astronaut. So Sally was always at our house, and she was a wonderful, brilliant person, astrophysicist, PhD student, athlete. She was a national champion tennis player. I didn't realize it at the time. But when she went out to be an astronaut, you knew that she was going to get it and made for it. So that was the schism at that time. And if we look at the research back in 1977, there were 0 peer-reviewed published articles on any type of impact on health or wellness of meditation. And you can see as of 23, there were 1,314 peer-reviewed published articles. So at the time, so tremendous integration of science to this, which for me is a scaffolding to support this practice that we experientially learn from, but we also now have scientists backing up. So Matthew Ricard was a PhD graduate student at Pasteur Institute under a Nobel Prize winning biologist. And he went to Nepal and started studying Buddhist practice. And he wanted to leave his training and become a monk. And the monks in the monastery said, no, finish your training, get your PhD, and then make a decision. They weren't, saying, come on. They're saying, think about it and see what's right for you. And so he did finish his PhD, and he went into the monastery, and for the next 20, 25 years studied and practiced intensive meditation. And when they wanted to start scientifically investigating what's happening in the mind, in the brain, and in the body, They had a Western trained scientist who was also a great meditator. He actually became world famous because there were measurements of how happy you are through different brain. And he turned out he was like off the scale happy. So he was actually, kind of went viral as him being the happiest man alive. So he got together with Antonio Lutz, who was a neuroscientist, and Richie Davison, who runs the neuroscience research lab at University of Wisconsin. And they formed Mind and Life Institute to help and to do this research. So if you want to dig more deeply into this, Daniel Goleman, who was the New York Times scientific editor, he was also a disciple of Neem Karoli Baba, Ram Dass's guru, just as a side. A lot of those people came in because they were also scientists. And Richie Davison wrote this book, Altered Trait, which is all the scientific findings that they kind of summarize for you. And so this is Matteau Ricard going into a MRI scanner, a functional MRI scanner, to see what was going on in his brain. And let's look at some of this, because some of this is really important and foundational to what we're going to do here this next couple days. So one of the kind of funny things is when Sally Ride's biography came out, I heard about it and I wanted to get it right away. And I was in the airport. And when we lived with all these physics graduate students, the magazine that we always had around us was Scientific America. That was like our life magazine. And when I went in to see Sally's book, right next to it was this Scientific America. So you can see how those worlds have come together over time. So the neuroscience of meditation, the mind of the meditator. So what everybody and what I want, my first goal is to debunk that meditation is anything out of the ordinary. Every one of you is already very mindful in your life, in different places of your life. Every one of you is using focus and concentration in so many ways in your life. And the first thing that comes up for people when they try to meditate is they think they're supposed to go into this altered state where their mind quiets and they don't have any thoughts and they're in samadhi bliss. And what they first notice is how busy their mind is. Okay? That's not a problem. That's what you're observing. That's the first thing you will notice. So focus attention. This practice directs the meditator to concentrate on the in and out breath. So your primary focus in all of meditation practice is your breathing. And the breathing is very useful that way because naturally you don't worry about the breath you took 20 minutes ago, and you're not worrying about the breath you're going to take anytime in the future. It's really present. It brings you to the present moment. So it's an anchor. If you're feeling yourself breathe right now, you're here. The in-breath you're feeling is right now. The out-breath you're feeling is right now. So you stay in the now, okay? So even for the expert, the mind wanders and the object of focus must be restored. That's what happens. That's what you're going to experience as we try to tune in and get connected within ourselves. So a brain scanning study at Emory University has pinpointed the distinct brain areas that become involved in these attention shifts. So this is all from the Scientific America. So what mindfulness is, and that term is everywhere now, even in Star Wars, Yoda saying be mindful. It's also called open monitoring meditation. Mindfulness entails observing sight, sounds, and other sensations, including internal body sensations and thoughts. Thoughts are just another form of sensation in this practice. It's not a problem that your mind doesn't stop, that you're having thoughts. It's the way that you orient yourself to actually observe the thoughts. Okay? Expert meditators have diminished activity in anxiety-related areas such as the insular cortex and the amygdala. You don't have to know neuroscience, but we'll talk a little bit about some of the things here. Then there's other focused meditations, which we're kind of here to do a lot, which is compassion and loving kindness meditation, particularly towards ourselves. In this practice, the meditator cultivates a feeling of benevolence directed towards other people, whether friends or enemies. Brain regions fire up when putting oneself in place of another. The temporal parietal junction, for instance, shows increased activity. So we can see now with the functional MRI the shifts happening in the brain itself as you cultivate these various states. All right. So the wandering mind. So if we look at this particular place here, the posterior cingulate cortex, the orange place right here in the center of the brain, this is the front of the brain and this is the back of the brain. And we see that when the mind is wandering, when you're not focused, when you're kind of on automatic pilot and there's no attention, that the mind doesn't go to your happy place. It doesn't go to peacefulness. It actually goes towards anxiety. So an unfocused mind is an unhappy mind. So imaging of a meditator in a scanner illuminates the posterior cingulate cortex, the precorneus, and other areas as part of the default mode. This default mode is that we're gonna kind of take a look at that, which stays active when thoughts begin to stray. So the wandering mind in the posterior cingulate cortex is kind of pig pen. Wherever you go, there's all this dirt in your thoughts. They're not focused. They're not intelligent. They're not wise. They're not going to take you to the happy place. They're going to ruminate about the past and they're going to worry about the future. So unfocused mind is not a happy mind. It's self-focused, critical, and unhappy. Eeyore, right? I think, therefore I'm unhappy. That's the default mode. So let's look at the difference in meditation and mindfulness of being focused or not focused. So here's a picture of a woman. It looks like she's reading. She might be reading, but we don't know, okay? Because one of the, I think, most concrete examples that we all experience is we're reading and we're into the story and we go about the page and then an intrusive thought comes in or we lose focus and the mind goes off somewhere. And your eyes don't even know that your mind's checked out. It keeps going down the page. You might even turn the page and at some point you wake up and realize, I don't know a damn thing on that page. It happens all the time, right? To all of us, okay? That's the difference. So when you're reading and you're really present in the story, it's a whole different experience. You know, you see the symbol for the word coffee, and all of a sudden you're remembering your morning feeling of coffee, the smell of coffee, the taste, how it wakes you up. It has all these feelings and experiences that are related to it, okay? And so let's look at that scientifically. There's these symbols on the page. We know now that there's pixels that they use and that create the symbols. And the light hits it and it's reflected into your eye and the lens focuses on these sensors in the back of your eye and it goes through your brain. And when you're really focused and reading, this mysterious thing called awareness is connected to that visual experience. Right? The circuit is complete. And you're there with the experience that those symbols are bringing out from you. Okay? When your mind goes off and checks out somewhere, the same symbols are there, the light's hitting it, it's reflected, it goes in your eye, it goes to the sensors, it goes through this mush, but that mysterious thing of awareness is not there. It's incomplete. There's no reading. There's no experience. So she might be daydreaming or reading. We don't know. And we can see the vast difference in that. So what we're going to work on in practices is completing the experience, completing the circuit with our senses. All meditation is seeing consciously, feeling sensations in the body, hearing the sounds, vibrations coming to your ears right now, and even the thoughts in your mind, smell and taste, like when you're eating, being there to actually experience your food. That's all it is. So here's an important point. You know that point, like you're reading and you've checked out, and all of a sudden you realize, I don't know a damn thing on that page. Then you come back and you kind of have to reread, because now you're going to have to do it with focus. That moment you realize you're not present, you are present. And that's one thing to really take in. If you know that you're not, if you know that you're having trouble, or your mind won't stop, or you're, somehow not doing it right, that's enough awareness to actually shift what's going on inside your brain. You're not lost if you are aware that you're feeling lost. You're not lost. So what happens is now you've shifted to the anterior part of the brain. The more anterior we get in the brain, the more we are to our higher centers. So our crown jewel of human development is the prefrontal cortex. That's the part that makes decisions and choices. That's not developed till we're like 26 years old, 27 years old. So teenagers do all kinds of stupid things, and we all did when we were teenagers, because we really didn't have a fully developed prefrontal cortex. It said, it's not a good idea for me to do this. Okay? So what happens, as soon as you realize you're not present, your brain is actually shift more anteriorly. Just know, for your own support of the practice, that is very powerful. A very, very powerful shift has happened. So Eckhart Tolle talks about the power of now. That's being present. So what's the most popular mantra that we have? Oh shit. Oh shit, I can't. Oh, no, I'm not good at this. Oh shit, this is happening. Oh shit, that. So in our practice, we change that mantra a little bit to just, oh, I'm feeling this. Oh, this is what's happening. And maybe even, oh, good. Oh, great. I'm feeling sadness. Oh, great. Wow, I'm connected to that experience inside of me. Okay? So, because we're going to look at our emotions, it's very important. Part of our lives is our emotional life. So a wise person like you would practice the qualities you wish to grow in your body and mind: contentment, peace, kindness, and compassion. So it doesn't matter whether you're consciously practicing something. Your brain is, those pathways, every time you do something, those pathways are getting stronger in your brain. You're making synaptic connections that get stronger and stronger. So if you're beating yourself up and you're being unkind and you're being reactive to things, you're just going to get better and better at that. It's going to be this 8-lane superhighway that you just automatically get on and go 75 miles an hour. Okay? So there's this other pathway. It's kind of the forest that we haven't grown, that we can, as we practice these things, we make that pathway and they get stronger and stronger. So every moment that you're kind to yourself builds kindness. Every moment you have compassion for yourself builds compassion. So we want to kind of bring this practice out consciously in our lives. So there's a very important part of this now, which is the reorientation. So when you're reading and you've lost focus and you wake up and realize, I don't know a damn thing on that page, and you bring yourself back to really read what you've missed, that orientation is no different than taking a weight and lifting it and building muscle. It's a very important, powerful thing to do. You're using parts of your brain that have to do with executive function. So what meditation in this practice looks like is trying to be focused and then losing it, waking up and coming back. And instead of, oh shit, we want to go, oh good. And start support ourselves, start being kind to yourself on all levels. Because you're building your brain, you're building those pathways. They're going to get stronger and stronger and stronger, and it won't feel right not to be kind to yourself. So reorienting is two brain areas, the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex and the inferior parietal lobe are among those that help disengage attention from a distraction and refocus on the rhythm of inhalation and exhalation, your focus of breathing per se. So again, you don't need to be a neuroscience, but you're bringing yourself more to the front of your brain, more to the higher centers of the brain, okay, as you do that. So the frontal lobes are considered a primary neural substrate for executive function. EF is executive function. They're the last part of the brain to fully develop. The dorsolateral prefrontal cortex is involved in online processing of information, while the ventral medial prefrontal cortex is associated with emotional and motivational executive function. So again, just know that you're activating the front of your brain, the higher centers of your brain, the more creative centers of your brain, okay? So sustained focus, and you can see here from this scan that the brain is relatively quiet. This is those peak moments, a few moments after working, going back and forth, where you might even have a fleeting moment of just presence. And it's transformative and it's beautiful and it's lovely. But it just it's something that you can't be attached to always being there. It's something that you work towards. We call it right effort. The right effort to pay attention. The right effort to notice when you've lost attention and to bring yourself back and get that pathway stronger and stronger. Okay? So studies have shown that you actually can increase brain, and they used to think like in an 8-week program like we do with mindfulness-based stress reduction that you'd see increase in brain volume, but that's been disproven as they did further studies. But with intensive meditation, you do see these pathways and basically get stronger. I'm 75 years old. I need to keep on doing this to keep my brain alive. So neuroscience shows that 50-year-olds have the brain of 25 years old if they sit quietly and do nothing for 15 minutes a day. So just don't do something, sit there. So this is just an example. So let's look at this executive function. So we have a spotlight. Think of it in theater, they have a challenge, okay? If we're here in a theater and you all are on stage now, and Steve there is going to do a solo because he's a good guitar player and singer. So the spotlight shines on him, and the lighting director, everything else goes dark. And the people in the audience only see Steve. Okay? Then Steve's finished, and we all want to appear on the stage. The lighting director lights everything up, and all of a sudden everything appears. So we have this executive function action of the brain that can focus our spotlight of attention. And what we're going to ask you to do this for the next few days of this practice is to keep the spotlight of attention on yourself. Keep your attention. It's a very powerful force. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more. So you can direct your attention to feel in your body, to be present with yourself and be connected within yourself by shining that spotlight on yourself. and it's not selfish. So one of the kind of foundational principles that we want to look at is the misconception of the word selfish. Selfish is very different. We call it a near opposite of self-care, self-attention. Self-care and self-attention are, I think, the most altruistic things you can do. Because when you're taking care of yourself and you're giving yourself the attention that you thrive on, that sparks you, you're going to naturally spread it out. Okay, and I'm going to give you an example in my life. I was teaching at Stanford when we first started the program, two nights in a row. And the first night, there's always construction at Stanford. They're always building a new building, and they were getting ready to build a new hospital building. And so in the main highway in front of the hospital was where our integrative medicine clinic was, where I was teaching, and there was a long line of traffic. And I was in a good mood. I was happy. And there was somebody trying to get out of one of the buildings. And I stopped. And I said, come on, get in, it's okay. And the person got in, and they were just pleasantly surprised that not only did I notice them, but I was offered them, get in, help, I'm here, to help you get out of get through the traffic. 24 hours later, I was pissed off about something. I swear to God, I was in the same line of traffic at the same spot, and there was somebody trying to get in just like 24 hours before. And I found myself unconsciously moving up to the car in front of me as close as I could. You're not getting in here, you son of a bitch. I got places to go, And it dawned on me like, oh my God, what are you doing? 24 hours, you were a different person. And so what we see is that what's going on inside of us comes out. And when you're loving and kind and compassionate with yourself, you couldn't think of doing something unkind to somebody. You would have to change your own inner experience to be angry and to lash out. And so when you're taking care of yourself and you're nurturing yourself, that is going to come out from you. You can't hold it back. It's the most altruistic thing you can do. You can only be kind to other people when you're embodying kindness with yourself. So this self-care, self-attention is not selfish. It's the opposite of that. It's altruistic. So we're going to start giving ourselves attention as we move through the day, as we're in line in the cafeteria, as we're watching the sunset, as we're in the tubs. Keep that attention on yourself. Keep the spotlight. So we have our largest group at Stanford, which is kind of interesting. At first, they didn't even get credit for this. It's the business school. And I think they were very influenced by this guy named Steve Jobs, who was meditation was a very important part of his life. And it fed his creativity. And he was one of the most creative people in the world. He had problems as a person, but his creativity, nobody could doubt. And this is actually something that he read at a graduation. He was giving a commencement speech. If you sit and observe, you will see how restless your mind is. So the first thing you observe is that busy mind that's been on automatic pilot, that feels like it's out of control. But because you're observing it, you've shifted that to an experience that connects you. That might be the first experience that you observe. If you try to calm it, it only makes it worse. Fighting it, trying to make it different, only makes it worse. But over time, it does calm, and when it does, there's room to hear more subtle things. That's when your intuition starts to blossom, and you start to see things more clearly and be in the present more. Your mind just slows down, and you see a tremendous expanse of the moment. You see so much more than you could see before. It's a discipline. You have to practice it. So this is Elizabeth Blackburn, and she's at UCSF, and she won the Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine in 2009 for her discovery of telomeres. Now, telomeres are like if you have shoestrings, they're the plastic cap at the end of your shoestring that let it go through the eyelet. And if you lose that plastic cap and the shoestring frays, you can't get it through, okay? Well, every chromosome in our body and every cell of our body has these telomeres, these plastic caps at the end of the chromosome that protect it. There's 10,000 of these sequenced genes in DNA. You don't have to worry about the numbers, but there's 10,000 of these. And every time your cell replicates, those get shorter and shorter. So there's a cell line, like the color of your hair, there's cells that make the color of your hair. And when that cell line dies out, your hair turns gray. That cell line is gone. So what they found is that stress frays the telomeres prematurely. So it's destructive on that cellular level. That's why people who are under stress, their hair can turn gray very quickly. Okay. So a researcher, Elizabeth Eppel, who's also a teacher here at Esalen, went to Elizabeth Blackburn and they started doing research to see if meditation and mindfulness could change this. So it's another physiologic marker to look at the impact of practice like this. And what they found is, yes, indeed. So the good news is that there's a chemical called telomerase, which repairs these frayed telomeres. So if you've been stressful and you've worn out and prematurely aged your telomeres, they actually can be repaired, making you younger at a cellular level. So we're going to look at our peaceful physiology. So at Stanford, we have a lot of the athletes that take my program, and it's wonderful working with them. And the reason they've heard about this in sports is a very important thing in sports now, to integrate mindfulness with the training, the athletic training. So let's look at some of the things here. So medicinal hatha yoga, stress reduction, all these things have an impact on your hormones, on oxidative stress, and your immune system. So your immune system is at its best, at its most powerful when you're at peace, when you're relaxed. So if you get ill and want to recover, the best thing you can do for yourself is to just love yourself and be at peace. And then your immune system is at its best. So the first thing that we notice is how we've forgotten how to relax. We've forgotten how to be peaceful. We live in a stressful world. We used to, get a letter and think about it and sit down and write an answer to the letter, put it in the mailbox. It's going to take days to get to the person. They would have to sit and reply to you. And then a week or two later, you get a nice letter back. And, we had more patience with process. Now you've got to be on the text message every moment. And, if you're not there. And so we live a different life and we need to adapt to that. It's what's here. It's not going to go away, but we need to start looking at how we do that. So on a physical level, we've forgotten how to relax our body. And I'll give you an example of that. So in my practice, so I'm a dentist, which doesn't translate to any of the images in your mind of what I did. So I never wanted to fill teeth. I never wanted to do root canals, but I knew intuitively I should become a dentist because I wanted to heal. I wanted to be a healer. And so I started working with head and neck pain and pain management, which didn't exist as a specialty. It's now a recognized specialty in dentistry, TMJ, you've heard about the jaw. And so I work with the medical side of dentistry. And I didn't want to give drugs. So I'm dealing with 25 pain patients a day, and I never wrote a prescription for pain medicine. If I couldn't fix it and figure out what was going on, there's plenty of good prescribers out there. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to start getting opioids and all kinds of anti-inflammatory things that have negative side effects. So I looked for ways to heal using acupuncture, osteopathy, natural medicine. And I was doing a lot of hand manipulation on patients. I did something called cranial osteopathy. So I spent a lot of my time doing hand work. And I got very severe carpal tunnel on both hands. I had shearing pain. And I thought, okay, this could be the end of my career, or I need surgery. Okay. But I said, okay, let me use what I know about the mind and body and see what I can learn. So I did a meditation practice at the end of the day when I was laying in bed. I bring my attention to feel the sensation, and I used the sensation, which was a shearing pain, as a target. And I stayed with it, and the more I felt it and the more I opened up, the more it hurt. It was like sometimes I think, am I crazy? And then there'd be a point where it'd be like the old doctors would wait for the fever to break, and the pain would go away. And then I know I could go to sleep knowing the blood was circulating. So what I realized is that I was using these muscles so much, and it wasn't the problem of when I was using it. It was that when I wasn't using it, I didn't let go. So blood couldn't flow through those muscles anymore. All right. So as you relax your body, a paradoxical thing happens. The nerves wake up. You know, when you've been sitting and your leg falls asleep, and then you get and you move it, how does that feel afterwards when blood starts to return to your leg? It burns, it throbs, you know, it goes crazy for a while, but you don't worry about it because you know it's clearing out. Well, when you have a big chronic thing like that, you don't know that, but that's exactly what's happening. So I did that for a few months, and it completely went away. It wasn't that I stopped using my muscles. It was that when I wasn't using my muscles, they would let go and blood would circulate and nurture and cleanse the muscles. So when we have headaches, we're going to look at, using our mind to heal our bodies. And we have powerful inner resources for that to happen. And we want to use our natural abilities. So physically, we need to remember how to relax our body. And you'll hear some of these things over and over again. In the mornings, you have the yoga classes here. A different teacher will probably be telling you the same kind of principles of learning, remembering how to relax, remembering how to let go. Mentally, a relaxed mind. Your mind needs rest. It needs time to recharge. A lot of that happens in sleep. So we need good sleep. By the way, the fact that you're staying awake here, see some of you are, is pretty amazing, all right? Because we're all been stressed out in our lives, and you come to a place like this and you start to relax, and the first thing you realize is how tired you are. So you're in the process of beginning to relax, and that's good. So we're going to look at a relaxed mind, and spiritually, a relaxed life, trusting what life brings you, being purpose-driven in your life. So these are the qualities. So this is Aikido. I trained in Aikido for about 13 years, got the magic black belt, so I got to wear that black skirt. But the whole training all along was once you accomplished that, the only thing you knew was enough to begin your practice. It wasn't like now you're there. You've found the prince or princess, happily ever after, like the stories tell. No, you know enough to begin your practice. Wherever you are, we're beginners. Leonard Pavilion, so one of the original Aikido masters who went to Japan and brought that to America, was on the board here and was a teacher here at Esalen. The pavilion where the yoga class is going on now is called Leonard Pavilion. It's named after him. That's George Leonard. He died in 2010. So Aikido is a way of unifying with life energy, a way of harmonious spirit. According to the founder's philosophy, primary goal of practice of Aikido is to overcome oneself instead of cultivating violence or aggression. And Aikido means I is blending, Ki is energy or Chi, and Do is the way. It's the way of blending energy. And what Aikido in the martial arts is that if someone is coming at you, you use their momentum and their power of aggression to get them into a neutral place where you have control, but you're not hurting them. Okay, it's the resolution of conflict is the real principle of Aikido. So let's look at energy, and this is where the athletics come in very strongly, because we're going to look at physics here. So I love tennis, and I have a coach, and he's training me, and if I hit the ball really hard and it doesn't go anywhere, he says, you muscled it. You muscled it again. You know, you're not flowing. When you really have power, it doesn't feel like effort. So let's look at the physics of this. So we're going to really effort, and we're going to use 150 units of energy. 100 are going the way we want it to go. But the problem is that there's 50 units antagonizing that. So our net outcome is 50 units. So if I really work hard and struggle, I'm actually getting less energy. If I let go and I relax, I might only be using 75 units of energy, but it's all going the way I want it. There's no resistance. There's no holding back. And all of a sudden, there's power. So you see these people trying to break boards or do the stupid things that I think it's stupid. But they were meditating before, and they're relaxing, and they have power. Okay, they're focused, they're concentrated, but they're relaxed. Okay, so that's one of the paradoxes, is the more relaxed, and in sports now, it's getting into flow. There's this whole thing of getting into flow, which is this relaxed, heightened aware state, but effortless. So the default mode that we were looking at, the unhappy brain part, if we look at it, is the brain's gatekeeper, the unhappy brain. To understand how default mode network restrains our ability to experience mystical states, we must first examine its role. The default mode network becomes more active when the mind is unfocused. During daydreaming, recalling memories, contemplating the future, it orchestrates self-referential thoughts, helps restrict and maintain our ego and our sense of self. It also plays a significant role in our experience of space and time. Aldous Huxley, this building, this room is named after him. This is the Huxley room. There's a picture of him and Michael Murphy, the founder, here outside this door. In 1954, the concept of the brain as a reducing valve seems to anticipate modern neuroscience's understanding of default mode network. The Doors of Perception, his book, that's what the band The Doors were named after, The Doors of Perception. He proposed that our brain's limited perception funneled what he called the mind at large into a narrow, measly trickle so that we can become aware of it. This metaphor implies that our brain's activity holds us back from perceiving reality in its fullness. If we open this reducing valve by diminishing the default mode network, he suggests that we're more open. Okay? Let's talk about, so what we're going to see is what I've been feeling and kind of getting to in my life is that we walk on two legs. Okay? One leg is, I call the dog shit world. You know, the world of the to-dos and struggling through the challenges of life, the human existence. The other is the mystical. And what I want to focus on is the mystical side of things, because we need to bring that more into our lives. Okay? This kind of smart guy said, default mode, Einstein wrote in 55, the distinction between past, present, and future is only stubbornly persistent illusion. Similarly, people who experience the mystical states often report profound sense of unity with the cosmos, described as transcending time, space, and ego. The most beautiful thing we can experience is the mysterious and the source of all true art and science. He who the emotion is a stranger who can no longer pause to wonder and stand wrapped in awe is as good as dead. His eyes are closed. Okay. So let's talk about this mystical experience. Now, I want to share with you something that I started sharing recently. My wife's sick of hearing about this, but my first mystical experience. So when I was 14 years old, my passion was wrestling, and I lived in Baltimore, right next to Pimlico Racetrack. I lived at one corner, and the Jewish Community Center where I wrestled is at the other corner, about 2-mile walk each way. And it was raining that day, Sunday afternoon, coming home, and my mother gave me 35 cents to buy bread on the way home. And I could have taken a bus and she would have understood it's raining, couldn't buy the bread. But I decided I'd walk in the rain and buy the bread. So I walked the first length, bought the bread, and I'm riding the second length on a sidewalk in front of a row of houses. And all of a sudden I hear a crash and I'm flying through the air. I didn't see what happened. I didn't know what happened. It was a stolen car out of control, came and hit me, knocked me flying in the air. It would be like a scene in a movie. And as I was flying through the air, I heard a voice that was so clear and so loud and so distinctive in my head. And it said, "This is not an accident. This is to teach you, pay attention." And I hit the ground. I was in the hospital for 2.5 months. I couldn't stand still for a moment before that. I was a young, restless, hyperactive kid. And here I was strapped in bed. But I realized there was something I needed to pay attention here. And how do you pay attention? So I brought my attention in and I felt everything. I was in excruciating pain. I instead of fighting it, instead of trying not to feel it, I brought my full attention to it. And when I did, something strange happened. It kind of transformed. The suffering went away. The presence brought out something deeper than the sensation of pain. And it became a foundational principle in my life. So when I got sick and had the flu, instead of the "oh shit" mantra, I strangely would go, and I thought, well, you're really crazy, kid. And I'd go, oh, good, I get to feel new sensations. And I would bring my attention in and feel all the sensations, and I would get well really quick. The joke in my family, Dad's sick, give him a minute. And science has shown how that is true. That's when your immune system is at its best. So we can start to recognize that we can transform things with our relationship to them. So in meditation, it's not what's happening, it's how you're holding it. It's your relationship to it that will create suffering if you fight it and struggle with it, want it to go away, want it to be different than it is, or meeting it as it is with love and compassion, with trust, with the qualities you want to grow. Every moment is an opportunity to deepen connection. And sometimes we do that through opening to the pleasures and the blessings and the challenges equally. So when I became a dentist, I knew, I had a lot of, at the time, there was times in my life where a lot of mystical experiences were happening. I was like being led. And I finished my residency, and I was working for another dentist, my first office that I was working out of, and I never went in the personal office of the person that I was, the doctor it was his office. And I happened to be walking past, and in the corner of my eye, I see a piece of paper, and in my mind, it lifted up and went down, and I went in and picked it up. And it was a brochure for a course in LA the next weekend. I wasn't even, that's how we found out about courses, mailing, the US mail. I wasn't even there. And I looked at it, it was called Transition in Medicine. I knew I had to be there. I went there, and it was all about everything I did from that point on in my career. I came back, and I was working at the VA hospital, and this patient shows up. It was my first patient after coming back from this course, where it started looking at how the jaw affected the whole body and caused headaches and back pain and all kinds of medical things that I wasn't taught in school. As a matter of fact, everything I taught in school was wrong, and it proved out to be wrong. So here's this guy, it shows up, and he was diagnosed with MS. See if I can get that to, oops. I don't know if I'm going to get that to work. What did I just do? You went forward. I went backwards, yeah. Okay, anyway, it won't play, but I'm going to show you what happened. He had MS, and he couldn't move his leg. He had a brace on his right leg. And for him to cross his leg, he had to use his hand and lift it to cross his leg. Well, I put a mouthpiece in that took pressure off the nerves of his jaw joint, and all of a sudden he could cross his leg. And we both looked at each other like, what just happened? And I was starting acupuncture. At that time, acupuncture was heresy. They were arresting people for doing acupuncture. And I thought, well, I must have opened meridians that crossed the mouth or somehow related to the jaw. So I took, in dental x-rays, the backing is a lead foil bag thing to keep radiation. So I took a lead foil from the badge, and I knew that high concentrated material blocked acupuncture meridians. Rubber doesn't, but the lead foil would. And I put it between his lips with the thing in, and he couldn't move his leg. And I pulled it out, and he could move his leg. And I put it back in, and he couldn't move his leg. And then I just touched these 2 points, which are acupuncture points. The beginning, there's a conception and the governing vessel that cross the mouth. And somehow, instinctively, I just put my fingers here, and he couldn't move his leg. It blocked the meridians that I had opened up. And I took my hand away, and it was like turning a light switch on and off. And it was like, wow, the energy is a real thing. Qi in the Eastern world, Qi is a real thing. They grow up with this concept. We don't grow up with it. So recognizing that there's these energy flows through the body that are just as important as the blood flowing through you, and just as important as the nerves that are flowing through you. So we have this energy system that is real. The chakra system is real. The Indian chakra system. These are energy centers that have a potency. One of the things I studied with cranial osteopathy was looking at the brain and the spinal fluid system. And there's this concept of therapeutic potency. So one of the things I want to understand through this is that when you focus and concentrate in your body in the present moment, you are gathering energy and you are strengthening the energy channels of your body. So there's a lot of levels that the mind controls your inner system. It improves circulation and it improves energy flow. And so if we took a drop of blue ink here and we put it in a glass, it would turn the whole glass, the water, blue. If we put it in the ocean out there, it would dissipate and have no potency. So what we do is we gather ourselves in the present moment, inside of ourselves. We are creating an energy vortex within ourselves. There's a therapeutic potency to that that is real as anything else. That's what Eckhart Tolle said, the power of now. So one of our superpowers is, again, using our executive function to focus. We can focus in on this, like we're looking at a microscope. We can do that in time and space. And that's how we concentrate ourselves, or we dissipate. So in time, if we're not in the present moment, if we're ruminating about the past, fearing the future, we're dissipating that energy. There's no potency to it in time. In space, the same thing. If we're outer focused, we're worried about what other people are thinking about us, what's going on outside of ourselves, we're dissipating that potency. As we gather and come into ourselves and bring ourselves to the present moment, we're concentrating that potency. Okay? So we can, where our superpowers, we can zoom in. Sometimes we need to focus really on what's happening now. And sometimes we need to take a bigger view. We need to be more patient with process. We need to understand that the way things are now is the temporary present nature of things. That things will evolve and grow and change. So we take a broader view. So we can zoom in, we can zoom out. We can choose where we're focused. We can have a lot of abilities. And this is our superpower in time and in space. So one of the things that I've been very interested because of my personal experience, because I thought I was a stranger in a strange land for the things that were happening to me and the experiences that I had as a child. And I've been kind of focused and loving studying about near-death experiences. I don't know if anybody here, it's becoming very common and people are really looking at it. So the University of Virginia has a center at the medical school of the Division of Perceptual Studies. And these are all the researchers, physicians, PhD research psychologists that have studied for 30 years, 4,500 cases of that. And there's some common things that happen to these people. I've spoken to one of them, Kim. Let's see, where's Kim? The top, Kim here. Let's see, no, Kim over there. And I connected her with my supervisor at Stanford because I'd like to do more things at Stanford with this. And what they found is that whether this is true or not, what is true and what they know is that these people have profound psychological changes that by and large, almost 100% are incredibly positive. They transform, they have different values. They've seen things and experienced things that change their lives. There's no therapy that seems to be as powerful as that. And they have decreased materialism, increased spirituality, reduced fear of death, and hence sense of purpose, greater appreciation for life and nature from this experience. Those are the commonalities. Over 50 years, that same group has been studying reincarnation. They've studied 2,500 cases of children that remember their past lives and documented 1,700 of them. So part of what we're going to talk about, I don't want you to believe anything that I tell you. I want this to be like we're going to Macy's and we're trying on clothes. And some of it will fit and some of it you like. And some of it, I don't want this. Okay? So you don't have to believe anything, but I want you to have a sense of what's being looked at and how that might impact you. That you see a child come into the world, they seem to have a momentum. If you have 3 kids, each kid seems to have a different pathway, a different personality from birth. Maybe there's a momentum from that. I don't know. It's the mystery. So the mystical experience, that's what we want to kind of look at, is our brain's default network acts like a mental filter, shrinking what we can see and feel. Meditation gradually shifts and unlocks deeper clarity and fullness of perception. Psychedelics swiftly loosen this filter. This is one of the talks about psychedelics. And actually, in September 8th to the 12th, I'm going to be co-leading meditation part of a legal psilocybin retreat in Oregon. One of my students at Stanford, when he was an undergraduate, took the course, and then he went back to the business school. And after one of the classes, he comes up to me and says, listen, I want to start a company that does legal psilocybin retreats. And I went, okay. They try to do that in business school, talk about that. And he did it. And he asked me and a guy from the University of Pennsylvania, and we're meditation teachers there, to lead the meditation. We're not going to do the psilocybin part because you have to be certified and it has to be in a certain center. So it'll be interesting to see how that opens these people up therapeutically. And UCSF, just about 6 weeks ago, we have what we call major lab meeting, where the psychiatry department at Stanford everybody talks about their cutting edge research. We have a whole day of presentation. The first day was the person at UCSF who's doing psychedelic therapies. And then there was a panel at the end of the day on that. So we're looking at it to open, is this a medicine that can open up the door? And it's not my thing. It's not the way I've done it, but we're looking at these things to see how they might be of value. So we know that we can shift what's going on inside of us. So let's talk about body language and breathing, which is critical, I think, and the first thing I teach in every class. So body language and communication, body language actually is the most powerful thing. So I heard you talking to a couple musicians. Okay. So singing the blues, my girlfriend left me and I lost my car and I'm broke. And you start to feel happy, right? Because the rhythm is happy and upbeat. It carries a load. The words are less important, okay? The same thing in communication. About 70% of communication is your body language, people reading you through your body. The most powerful inner body language is the way you move your diaphragm as you breathe. So if I tell you to take a deep, relaxing breath now, or let me give you an example of communication. I'm really excited now to be with you guys. You can't imagine how thrilled I am. You just make me feel so good right now. And what do you get? You get my body language, all right? So that's what we want to look at, is the inner body language, which communicates and directs our autonomic nervous system, okay? So if you have a panic attack, and you know the breathing of a panic attack, it's up here, and it's rapid, and it's short breaths, and it releases adrenaline, and it becomes a vicious cycle of adrenaline release, okay? So even if you're breathing normally, and you're breathing up here where your diaphragm lifts and goes into your chest, you're releasing adrenaline. You say, I want to relax, I want to take a deep, relaxing breath. But you're actually doing the opposite. You're taking your body and your mind and your whole physiology in a different direction than you want to. So the way that you move inside as you breathe is critical to direct your physiology. So what the diaphragm is a dome, and you'll hear over and over again in the yoga classes, breathe into your belly, okay? When you breathe diaphragmatically into your belly, the dome goes down, creates a volume in your chest by opening up lengthwise, okay? Breathe into your belly. And then when you breathe out. And that directs it's like the all clear signal. I can relax. I can let go. I can be at peace. Okay? So we're going to do a couple exercises tomorrow where we look at and experience changing, going back and forth and changing our physiology by understanding how to breathe correctly and how to move correctly. And I've looked at my classes over the 35 years, and about 85% of the people don't breathe correctly. So it's so common, and I think it's something that we all have to look at and get good at to direct our attention, take control back. So this is the way the body is supposed to breathe. The diaphragm going down, and our lungs are really in the back. So a doctor listening to your heart will listen in the front. When they listen to your lungs, they're listening in the back because your lungs are really more in the back. So it's really about breathing not to your front of your belly, but breathing down to your lower back. That's the most efficient breathing. You get about, I forgot how many cc's more air with each breath. You breathe slower, and it naturally takes you into parasympathetic mode. So we're going to look at how we breathe. And this is a study that came out from Stanford that accidentally discovered the mechanism of this breathing. And there's a kind of a billionaire from Hong Kong that came to Stanford. I was in the initial, they'd been studying in Thailand with these monks, and he put in, I think, $500,000 to do a research project that when they did it, COVID hit. I wasn't part of the research project, but Andrew Huberman, that you might have kind of became famous, he was part of that, and David Spiegel, who's my supervisor at Stanford. And it kind of went viral. So there's some other techniques that we're going to show you that came out of that research to really help you get into this relaxed state. So let's look at mindfulness and the fundamental attitudes. Non-judging, patience, beginner's mind that we talked about, trust. Trust is such an important element to me because from my experience of that car accident, what came out of that was an incredible, deep trust of life. Whatever happened, I don't believe in accidents. If you look around this room, it's no accident we're all together right now. It's no accident that the person on the left and the person on the right is here. I don't believe in that. You don't have to believe in it. You can try it on. I'd ask you to trust. But when things come up, if you develop this trust that it could be revealing something, that there's something that you can learn, there's a way through this that you can heal and grow, instead of your prejudice and the way things you think things should be, is the way it is what we want to get to. Non-striving and acceptance and letting go. Let's look at a couple pieces of this. Whoops. So non-striving, acceptance, and letting go can seem like it's giving in. It seems like it's not powerful. But what we're talking about is a powerful letting go, a powerful acceptance, a powerful non-striving, the willingness to be where you are at this moment, how you are. Do you know what a change that is, to not need to change anything right now in this moment? To let this moment be exactly the way it is, to let yourself be exactly the way you are. Prema Choji, just read the title of her book. She's she became a Tibetan, grandmother became a Tibetan monk. Start from where you are. It's not change, and then you'll deserve what's going on. It's start from where you are, accepting where you are, accepting yourself as you are now. What a relief. How incredible. So the practice in meditation and mindfulness, a formal practice. So we dedicate time to sit and to focus and to concentrate. Okay? But the whole purpose of that, and it's not a magic thing, anybody can do it. is for the informal practice to live our lives with intention, with presence. Everything becomes a meditation practice. You can formalize your life. So washing dishes can be a rich luxury experience. You're hearing the sounds, you're feeling the soap, your movement, you're connected to the movement, and you're willing to be where you are in that process. Or you can want to be done, you don't like washing dishes, and you find yourself doing the same thing, but you're suffering. That's a vast difference. And that's your attitude creates that, and your focus creates that. So it can be something of rich experience and pleasure, or it could be something of suffering to do the same thing. And there's so many places in our lives that we can reduce suffering by just starting to experience the way things are. Taking a shower is one of the most powerful things, and in my class, I think the students take this away, and we have the tubs and the showers here. So through the history of mankind, staying clean was a bitch to our grandparents, our great-parents, wherever they came from, getting clean. They didn't have, they went to the outhouse to poop. They didn't have a shower. We have this luxurious, magical thing where we go into this magic room and there's this thing where it has two knobs and we turn one of the knobs and oh my God, water comes out. Holy cow. Our grandparents, great-grandparents would have been like, oh, kings and queens get this. This luxury is beyond me, and we have it every day. Not only that, there's another valve that we turn and hot water comes out. Oh my God, Eureka, we're in heaven. What do we typically do? We put our hand in, we turn the water on to get it to be the Goldilocks temperature. We don't want to get scolded, we don't want it to be cold, so we pay attention for a little bit while we're adjusting the way. Once we get in there, we go in there and we go, oh shit, I can't believe I got that son of a bitch. And we're getting clean, but we're not enjoying ourselves. We're in our heads. We bring pig pen, dust, and dirt into the shower with us. Do you ever shower alone? Here you shower with other people, but in home, you're bringing all these people you're having fights with and worry about or whatever is going on in your head. Okay? All you have to do is get in the water and focus in and feel the luxurious sensation of the shower. Feel the water coming over you. Feel the soap, smell the rich herbs and spices you have in that wonderful soap you're moving. You're getting a massage. You don't have to pay. Don't tell the people there. You don't have to pay for a massage. You're already getting a massage. Okay? It's so what if it's you touching and connecting? You're feeling yourself. You're in the experience. You go out of the shower, you're drying yourself off. Now you're getting another massage. All you got to do is be present and feel what's already there, the luxury that you already have. And it becomes a deep, rich meditation. So one of the things I invite you to do from now on is to experience the spa treatment that's there for you every day. It's available that you already have. We were doing, physicians are under a lot of stress. Physicians are now number one in suicide. They're getting burnt out. It's a hard life. They've lost control. And we had a big problem at Stanford between the physicians and the residents. And the heartbreak culmination of that was suicides. People who'd worked their asses off all their lives thinking they were going to get this to the end of the rainbow and realize there's no end, there's no rainbow. It's hard, it's a struggle. Okay, so they're already time pressed. So I came up with the suggestion. We had Mark Walden, who was the chief of staff at Stanford. He's actually a very good actor, and he's a surgeon. And we had him taking that time as he's scrubbing up as a meditation to calm and relax and prepare themselves for the surgery. and to use it as time to connect with themselves. So we had it so that it didn't take them any extra time, but it turned what they already do into a deep practice. Okay? And now every resident, as they come in, sees that video of him demonstrating that. So we can start to realize that we can have this incredible spa treatment that's already there. So ultimately, if we're practicing kindness to ourselves, it's a better motivator. My daughter, who will be here Wednesday night, my son-in-law is being my assistant today. He can't be here at the same time because of the kids. When she was a junior in high school, she wanted a dog. And when she was going away to college, we didn't want a dog for the next, we wanted to be free. So we got the idea of her raising a guide dog puppy. So she had the guide dog puppy, and the way you train him is you take him everywhere. So she took him to class every day and restaurants and all, wherever you go, you take the dog. It's part of their adapting. And then we had about once a month, we went to trainings to teach us how to raise the dog. And what they would say was very, very mindful. You want them to do something, you want them to behave in a certain way. Get their attention gently. And when they do the right thing, pour love to them. Not beat them up for not doing it, but motivate them through love and kindness. That's what's going to train this dog to dedicate its life to help people. And it's a good model for us all. The best motivation for ourselves is kindness. You know that you're going to be kind to yourself, building that inside. Appreciation. Appreciation is the most powerful mental attribute you can cultivate for health and happiness of body, mind, and soul. And the more healthy and the more happy you are, the more health and happiness there is in the world. So appreciating, it doesn't mean having any, appreciation means not having any more. Appreciate that you had a wonderful dinner tonight, that you had food today. In many parts of the world, they were struggling to have food. So we want to acknowledge that and embody that appreciation. Appreciate that we have this opportunity to be here together in this beautiful place. What a luxury. And your spiritual practice is to appreciate that and to experience this time here fully. Not just for yourself, but because that will spread out into the world. So the only time to practice now is now. And John Kabat-Zinn, who's one of the most amazing people in the world, if we constantly throwing our moments away, almost willfully, then what I am saying is maybe it's about time that ordinary people wake up and notice what they have. So we use our senses. You're hearing vibration. When you're hearing the ocean, it's vibration coming to your ears, vibrating your eardrums, sending it through the bones to the sensors. When you're seeing colors and you're looking at things, the light is coming into your eyes and hitting the sensors. But we want to complete the circuit of experience. We want to hear, we want to see, we want to taste, we want to smell, and we want to have body awareness. We want the nerve endings in our body to be awake and alive and hear the inner messages, to be sensitive to ourselves. And knowing that we're going to do so with love and kindness and bringing those qualities, non-judgment. If something comes up for you and you react to it, that's not a problem. It's an experience. And what we do is we mistake our thoughts about something as the experience itself. What the actual experience is raw sensation. of all these basic things, the mind's activity is just as important. Color, body, smelling, tasting. That's how we experience the world that we live in. So there's a lot of paradoxes in this practice. If we mistake our thoughts about something for the actual thing, shifting from the concept and thoughts about something to the experience without judgment, we're adding or subtracting the raw sensation. So we're going to look at how this is used. That's Galen Rowell. Unfortunately, Galen passed away. He was a National Geographic photographer. He was a friend of mine. And he wrote a book with the Dalai Lama using his photography and having the Dalai Lama comment on his pictures. And it became this book, My Tibet. But he has another book that he first wrote that he's considered the Ansel Adams of modern photography. He's a mountain climber and a great photographer. And so he wrote this book, and in this book about photography, this is one of his most famous pictures of the rainbow coming out of the Potala Palace in Tibet. Most amateur photographers think of the landscapes as simply objects to be photographed. They tend to forget that they're never photographing an object, but rather light itself. And that's what he realized, that he was taking in light. And he would photograph mostly in the morning, twilight, and in the morning light, when the colors really came out. There's also this kind of drawing on the right side of your brain, which is interesting because if I told you to draw this face, you would draw, unless you're an artist, with the concept of what a nose is. And you start to, and what they tell you to do is turn it upside down. Now you're just looking at light. So I know if I'm going to draw this, there's dark shading here, there's light here, there's a darkness here, following the darkness and the light. So you'd become a much better artist, just letting go of the concept of an eye or a nose or a mouth and looking at light. So in meditation, we also use that instead of the concept of what we're experiencing, we just open to the actual experience in its rawest nature. So one time, we have a part of our mindfulness program is we have an all-day silent retreat, which a lot of people fear, but after they experience it, they don't want to let go of it. Okay, and one time I came into a room. It was our room. It was in the hospital at Stanford, and it was the only place that we had to practice. But when I came in, there was a plastic screen dividing the room in half, and on the other side of the room were 3 men with buzzsaws cutting pipes all day. And I had to figure out, what do I do to orient this experience, which we're trying to be silent, and the streaking sound was so unpleasant. And so I said, these people, let's reorient our thoughts about this, how we're holding this now. These people are doing what they need to do, and they're earning a living. They're supporting their families. They're doing what the hospital needs. They're here to serve. And we've refocused our attention, and by the end of the day, people couldn't believe it, that they were so peaceful and calm in the middle of this sound, because they had held it differently. And I thought, maybe I better hire them for all the future retreats. I have people that were in that class that still talk about it. They can't believe how it transformed for them. So again, it's not what you're experiencing, it's how you're experiencing it. So there's something called right effort. Trust every moment and open to its greater wisdom that is guiding you to heal. Every moment is an opportunity to heal. The experiences that come to you are just what you need to do that healing. Fill yourself with loving kindness, compassion, forgiveness, cultivating inner peace. Open the body and mind. Be content and be contentment with the wise understanding of the power of letting it be. Awareness connection through your body, experiential open to all five senses of the body, plus the sense of mind's vibration of activity. Be squarely on your path. So the only thing we really know, and a lot of these concepts can be really simple. The Dalai Lama simplifies it. It's just kindness. If you're in the present moment, you're on your path. This is a point on your path of life right now, if you're here. If you're thinking about the past, you've gone off your path. If you're worrying about the future, you've gone off your path. When you come and you're really here, you're on your path. And that's where things happen. That's where synchronicity happens. Jung talks about synchronicity. I love synchronicity. Just, it's affirming. Is that it? That's it.